Hello and welcome to my sermon. It is September 15th of 2019. Now this sermon is about the evils in our government and about climate change and how we can use those in our government who are too evil to be in a free society, as well as those in the fossil fuel industry, to tackle climate change before we lose our planet completely. Now, climate change is by far the biggest threat our planet has, as well as brain implants, because that can cause World War III. But climate change is already killing huge numbers of people, as we have seen in the Bahamas with Hurricane Dorian. And another storm is hitting there now. Now, Dorian killed at least 50, but there are 1,300 people missing from the Bahamas, and more than 70,000 are homeless. And it also hit the Carolinas and went all the way up and even hit northern Canada. And climate change is making hurricanes more severe and making them kill more people. Temperatures in the Gulf were in the high 80s. Those temperatures are at historic highs. And the scariest thing about climate change is that there is no limit to how hot the temperatures can get. And there's no question they're going to keep going up. Now, on Friday, it was 97.4 degrees here, when it was predicted to be 93 degrees. At 41% humidity, that made the heat index of 104 degrees. And when I wanted to walk in to Nelsonville to get some paperwork with my doctors, I didn't do it because it was too hot. And people need to realize that it's going to continue to get hotter. Now, what would Jesus do? Now, to calm climate change and to calm these storms in the future, we need to tackle climate change. We need to stop emitting greenhouse gases. Instead, we are incredibly increasing greenhouse gases. Now, I am an expert on climate change. I'm the author of 2 books on climate change, a total of 4 books on the environment. My other 2 books also mention climate change. And I have a master's degree in science in environmental science, which of course I also studied climate change too. I also have an undergrad in journalism, and I've been involved in the environmental movement all my life, and I started to fight climate change back in the 1980s. We already knew it was a serious threat, and climate deniers are the biggest threat. They are committing mass murder. It is like yelling fire in a crowded theater. And we need to do something to rectify them. And our president is the biggest threat that we have with climate change. Pulling out of the Paris Agreement, him saying he wants to go back to incandescence. Donald Trump is committing climate terrorism. He needs impeached for that. Obviously lots of other reasons too, like colluding with Russia to steal the election. Obviously he shouldn't even be president. And he is a huge threat. His denial of climate change is probably the biggest threat that we have on our planet. And he is committing mass murder. Climate change is going to kill, it is killing, and it is going to kill huge numbers of people. And it actually threatens all life on our planet. What are we going to do when the temperatures get up to 120, 130 degrees Fahrenheit, and we cannot even grow our crops? As I said, I'm an expert on climate change. I'm also an expert on Venus. I covered it for Countdown magazine, an investigative article, and I've studied it since. And I've studied NASA's mission to Venus. It is more than 900 degrees because of greenhouse gases. So we know that putting these greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, obviously it warms, but it's going to keep warming. And the feedback loops are the scariest part, is that we can't even really stop this. We've created an out-of-control system. We can try to slow it, and there may be possible ways to actually stop it if we do a World War II-like effort for the rest of our lives in every country, but we better start doing it right now. The feedback loops are when the snow and ice melts in the Arctic, instead of reflecting the sun's rays, it absorbs the energy. The melting permafrost releases huge amounts of methane. Those methane clathrates on the ocean floor. The dying forests, of course, release carbon and methane, and there are more. So we do need to tackle climate change, and having a World War II-like effort is what is going to be needed. We're going to need to put in massive amounts of wind, solar, mass transit, and we're going to have to do it right now. And one of the biggest threats of climate change is disease. Tropical diseases are moving north, even to places like Ohio, where we have West Nile virus, which, because of a tropical species of mosquito, is now living here when historically it was not able to. And here's a passage from our Bible, Exodus chapter 23, verse 25. You shall serve the Lord your God, and he will bless your bread and your water, and I will take sickness away from among you. Now, to take sickness away, we are going to have to tackle climate change. Having prisoners do work like making solar panels or installing solar panels and letting them get out earlier, shutting down mental hospitals, they're totally unconstitutional. The patients can be employed in efforts to stop climate change, and forcing those in government, police, prosecutors, judges, court employees, and federal agents, their contractors, and also climate deniers, force them to do large amounts of community service. Obviously taking their property too, and that can be used to install solar panels. And also, because climate change activists have been so poisoned, assaulted, murdered over the years, and given trumped up charges, because the fossil fuel industry pay the police to trump up charges against climate activists. I believe climate activists who have been working for at least several years should get at least $1 million per year. And authors on books about climate change showing it as a problem, like myself, should get at least $1 billion per year. And we can do that without raising taxes. Seize the property of those working and owning the fossil fuel industry, those in our government, and that should help pay for it. And also, the most important thing is that money will come from those who caused the problem, which is called justice. And I'll end with one of my favorite passages from our great Bible, Amos chapter 5, verse 24. Let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream.